Mike and I had both started to develop a good working relationship with Eric and respected him and thought that he was doing good votes. So we did end up reaching out to Eric, and he announced his run for vice chair in, was it at the end of April, I think.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fakertarians podcast. I'm your host, John Hudak, along with Jeremy Kantorowicz, Josh Hilditch, the Cosmic Cracker, and Archie Flower. Today we have for you the one, the only, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. No, I'm just kidding. Clint Russell, how you doing today, man?
I'm just here to break shit, you know?
Yeah, I figured.
It's just a Fred Durst reference. Anyways, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to meet you, Archie. We have battled eternally, and I'm so grateful to finally get to speak to you.
It only feels like an eternity.
Indeed.
Now, as
So
for
Archie-
me, we've never met because for whatever reason, you blocked me on Twitter before I even got to know you. Now, I found that just to be a really reactionary, and yeah, I guess I mean that both ways, reactionary reply to my very existence. I'm not black. I'm not Jewish. Why would you do that?
That's a really bizarre statement. I block pretty much anybody that comes across as, you know, woke as fuck and making that their priority in life. So I have no idea. I don't know who you are. You're an anonymous cracker. So what am I supposed to say?
You know, Fred, I want to ask you real quick, though. You saying that anyone who comes across as, quote, woke as fuck, what does that mean to you? So anybody who comes across as a nice, decent, caring person, someone who actually cares about their fellow man, someone who's not sitting there jerking off with his little frat boy, fuck boy wannabe friends, is that what being woke is to you, Fred?
No, that's not what it means to me, no.
Then what does woke mean to you, Fred?
Generally, woke means that you prioritize racial collectivist issues over liberty more broadly.
Being nice to minorities, right?
No.
So I wanted to, before we jump into things, I know Archie actually had something serious to say, so I'm going to let him come in for a second.
All right, cool. So I don't remember exactly when, 3-4 weeks ago, there was this whole thing where you were doxxed, and I saw that you had a screenshot of me and you were saying that I was defending you getting doxxed. And I want to just make sure 100% that you understand that I was in no way defending it. What I was doing, if you go back and look at the tweet, is that I was comparing that to the "it's just words" counter argument that your side so often uses with like memes or jokes or whatever. So
I understood your counter argument. I just don't agree with it. I mean, to make it seem as if it's just words when it's, you know, my personal address, my family's address, it takes it to another level that I think you would agree is much closer to violating the non-aggression principle than saying, you know, a racial slur or something like that.
I am by no means down with doxing. Okay. I think that it can.
I didn't assume that you were.
I think that it can be viewed as a violation of the NAP in certain circumstances. But you and I right now, we're communicating over this thing called the internet, which is based in computers, which are using ones and zeros. That's all this stream is in a fancy way. So that is all that doxing is. It's literally just information. That's what I meant when I said just words. So if just information can be a violation of the NAP, then my contention would be that certain memes and bullying and harassment and the continual pattern of harassment can certainly cross that line as well.
I think if it verges into implicit threats, then maybe you're right. But I don't think that just more broadly saying mean things on the internet gets anywhere near the same egregious nature of giving someone your private information that includes your location, your physical location. So I don't know. Oh, I agree to disagree, I guess. But I wouldn't assume that you actually endorse or support my doxing. I just thought it was a terrible opportunity to try and prove your point about bad words being a violation of the NAP.
What about a campaign to get someone to kill themselves? Teens have done that. They've bullied each other over the internet.
Would that be a violation of the NAP? I don't know. I mean, certainly it's morally reprehensible, but I don't know if I would want to like fight the kids. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to think about it.
Okay, well, then you have something to think about, and that's all I really wanted to accomplish.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sounds
before we
good.
jump
I like
into
it.
things more, I just want to make sure you're not 12 shots in.
I'm not. This is
Consent to
all,
being here.
I cannot be held responsible for anything I'm doing because I have not consumed that much alcohol yet.
Gotcha. So I want to go to a little bit of a quote here and give you a chance at this. So I was on, I was on with Josh Smith for a little bit, and then I got cancel cultured. But I have a little bit of a quote from you here. I wanted nothing more than to dunk on John Hudak, that little fucking midget bitch. So I wanted to give you your opportunity here.
I mean, do you have a hoop? Can we set it up?
Yeah, let's do it. I live near you. We can set it up.
Oh, do you play? Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, let's play. I'm down. If you're in Florida, I'm seriously. I'd play. I used to play. I played basketball for 15 years. So.
Let's do it.
And for the record, I can't dunk. I'm still.
No, I can't
6'1"
either.
and I'm white, and I can't dunk.
I'm not actually 5 feet tall or whatever Josh says. I'm like 5'9", but I can't dunk.
What? Why? How is it that you went from being, kind of friendly with Josh to being one of his biggest detractors?
I mean, even when I was one of his detractors, we were actually still friendly for a while. But right before he started this podcast, I would talk to him in Twitter DMs. Like, he said something to me like, "Don't tell anybody, but still love you, man, even though you piss me off all the time."
Sure.
I congratulated him on like his engagement and stuff and getting custody of his daughter and all that. I think when things really fell out was over the Hotep Jesus stuff, because we were talking about it a little bit behind the scenes, and I was kind of giving him a heads up on all of it, like kind of my thoughts on the whole thing, and he told me like I had some stuff for him to go over, and he said he'd read it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, like I don't really know much about this guy, like if he's saying that kind of stuff, like yeah, I mean, it does seem like there's kind of an issue with him." And then he ended up like defending the guy, bringing him on his podcast, and I was messaging him about it, and he just stopped responding to me, and I think that's when things kind of went south. But we were friends for a while. I mean, he's been to my apartment, he slept on my couch.
Yeah, no, I remember you talking about that. It's just sad, it's just sad when differences of opinion, break up friendships. But I get it. I mean, sometimes this is, I've already experienced it myself, just in the podcasting world. So it's a weird time to be alive. I honestly think that there's like a tremendous amount of like mental health turmoil that everyone's experiencing because of lockdowns that has really added an additional strain to relationships across the board. I mean, if you have family members that are disowning one another, I don't think it's at all surprising that you'll see people with, varying political affiliations starting to separate further too.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure we have disagreements on the seriousness of COVID. I'm a pro-vaccine, anti-mandate kind of person, but I could definitely see there being an issue with even people choosing to being cooped up in their apartments and houses all the time. Like, it does change the dynamics of human interaction to be stuck behind a screen as opposed to out in public.
Of course, it's catastrophic to have, especially during your formative years, to not see human faces for the most part, unless you're at home with your parents. It's a very, very trying time for people. This is why honestly, this is probably why I disagree with you guys about so many things, is that I think that it is a really catastrophic mistake, and that we're going to be paying a huge price for decades if we're lucky enough to get decades. And I just don't understand the focus on, I don't know, racial grievance issues that has come from your camp over the past year or two or whatever.
I mean, I think racial grievance issues can feed into a lot of important issues. I mean, I don't know your position on borders, but I see immigration enforcement by the government between massive public works projects like the wall, which who knows if they're ever going to finish that. But like the police enforcement at the border, stopping peaceful people from crossing the border, I see that as a massive human rights violation. Like if we're talking about vaccine passports, like we already have passports are a thing, and those are stopping people from voluntarily interacting with one another, and that seems like a very egregious violation of human liberty right there. And then I mean, obviously with stuff like with BLM, I thought, and you're going to probably disagree with me here, I thought the libertarian movement missed a gigantic opportunity. I'm not for any property destruction, anything like that, but we had people out in the streets chanting about defunding the police and ending qualified immunity, and I don't think we took advantage of that enough.
Oh, I agree, but I just don't agree that you could have done outreach in the way that Jorgensen's campaign was attempting to do so. I mean, if you're going to utilize, political dissidents that don't fit your exact political outlook, I think it's important that you message to them in a way that is extremely principled to what you actually believe in. And if you try and couch it in their language just to appeal to them, but I think you're going to be seen through. I mean, especially when you're talking about people that have already been lied to and abused by the government, what they're looking for is truth and sincerity. And I just don't think that you can do that with a political campaign where you go, hey, by the way, we agree that racism is the biggest issue in the country. It's like, well, libertarians by and large don't agree with that. And I just think that was the mistake. I completely agree with you, though, that they should have capitalized on the fact that people were finally willing to rise up and do something about the injustice that exists in this country. And, it goes both ways. There's the other side of it, that had they tied their wagon to that and then it become as violent as some of those protests or riots got to become, maybe it would have been a net negative. I don't know, but I think it could have been handled better for sure.
I mean, I think you can talk about how racism leads into other issues, though. Like racism doesn't just exist in a vacuum.
I completely agree.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I just think I didn't have a problem with the anti-racist quote. It wasn't even Jorgensen who actually tweeted that.
Of course.
Yeah, it was one of the staffers. I think I actually know who it was, but I mean, I think
did they get fired for it?
There was a whole thing with some people going from Jorgensen to.
Yeah, that
I don't think it was. I don't think it was that person who.
Okay.
I'm thinking of a specific person who went from the Jorgensen team to the Spike team after a bit, and I don't think it was them. But I mean, I think you can say like racism is bad, and then look at how racism manifests itself in the state. I don't think you have to be like, oh yeah, racism's not an issue, but listen to me on this anyway. I think you can kind of tie them both in together.
I don't know any libertarian that tries to say racism is not, well, maybe there are, but I don't know them. I don't know any libertarians that say that racism is not an issue. I mean, it's
Are you saying Jeremy Kaufman isn't libertarian? Did you just admit that?
No, I think Jeremy Kaufman's a great libertarian. What did he do that makes you say that?
It's one of LPNH's tweets from a while back.
What did he say?
Which one?
Basically that it's a non-issue.
I do recall it, but I don't have the exact quote.
I don't have it in front of me, but that's the thrust of that tweet. He made that tweet.
He posted
He made a much worse tweet today.
Yeah, today's was absolutely horrible. I mean, when he's getting the Mises Caucus out of Texas to condemn it, that says something. Go ahead and read it, John.
Okay. This was, I think it was posted around 10 Eastern today, and it got deleted after some backlash. There were actually some Mises Caucus people who pushed back on it, and I mean, I'll give them credit for that. I think it was the Texas Mises Caucus account.
It was
Texas. This is not good. Like, we shouldn't be saying this. But the tweet was, and even Maj went at them too. Like, Mises Caucus people were pissed about it. So he said, and I don't know for sure that this is Kaufman, but I know Kaufman's very involved in the LPNH page.
I think it was Kaufman, just given
if I had to guess,
given
but
the air of it. But
I'm
if I
saying
did,
he didn't like sign it, But it says black people in America get special access to essential drugs, receive special federal funding due to race, and are first in line for every college and every job. America isn't in debt to black people. If anything, it's the other way around.
Well, I think the first, I don't know if there's a period in there, but the first part of it I would probably agree with. The second part I don't agree with at all. I mean, black people are not, it's collectivist by definition. And
but I also wouldn't
say
I wouldn't say that black people are first in line for every job. I mean, there are
of
things
course,
like,
no. Yeah, you're right.
Like there are things like affirmative action and stuff like that, but there are other those don't exist in a vacuum either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I more meant the college admissions stuff. That is certainly true. There is a lot of advantage in checking certain boxes. This is why you have so many white people that are checking minority boxes and just lying on their college applications, because it is a real thing where they want to have quotas. I think this is probably why I push back against kind of prioritizing race issues in this country so much, is that I think that it creates further separation amongst people, where they start to, one, you have white people that are now classifying themselves as like distant relative minority.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah,
but isn't that tweet causing separation as well? I mean, what do black people like? Oh, America.
Well, I don't know if the
answer to the question is nothing, right?
What, say again?
I said the answer to the question is nothing. I mean, black people don't owe America anything.
I would agree.
Oh, well, okay. Well, great. Next topic.
I'm not even a nationalist, so
that's good.
Clint, let me ask you this. So I know you run in the Tower Gang circles and all of that, and you talk about messaging. How do you think that those messages that's portrayed through, and I'll be collectivist, through the Tower Gang, since the title itself is collectivist, through that Tower Gang, how do you think that affects minorities or trans youth or whoever, or do you just not give a shit?
How do I think Tower Gang affects minorities and trans?
The messaging that the Tower Gang uses. I
would imagine that it doesn't affect them at all. I mean, we're a very small show. Do you think we have the power to change the dynamic of trans rights in this country because of our podcast?
No, and I'm not saying that at all, Clint. What I'm saying is, when you all post those types of messages and you make those sort of tweets, even if it's not impacting on some greater scale, isn't there some sort of moral part of you that says that's just not funny?
No. I think that there is a lot of humor to be found in saying things that are inappropriate. That's why
I do too.
And I
do too. Don't get me wrong.
Against...
My main influences are Lenny Bruce. You give me some filthy Buddy Hackett, give me any of that stuff, man. I'm good with it. But the fact of the matter is, it all comes down to intent. And it never seems like y'all have a punchline. It seems like your intent is just to be hateful.
Well, you're wrong. I mean, if the point of Tower Gang was to be hateful, I wouldn't be involved in it. I greatly enjoy pushing the envelope. What we're doing on that show is trying to make each other laugh. And because we're in a group chat together, it requires us to say some really crazy shit to get each other to laugh. And then we just kind of feed off each other. I'm sure you guys do it on this show sometimes. So I just completely disagree with you that it's mean-spirited at all. I mean,
when you're dropping the N-word and giggling like 12-year-old kids, it's kind of mean-spirited.
Okay, well, I don't think that Cole's being mean-spirited at all when he does that. But
what about
my read of things?
What about
that's fine. You know him. You're connected with this individual. You know his heart. The other people viewing you, the other people coming to your content, they don't know your heart. All they're seeing is the N-word and a bunch of giggling like little kids.
So what about a situation?
Maybe.
I'll let you talk before I end.
Yeah, no, I just disagree with this assessment that one, it comes from a mean-spirited place. Two, that the vast majority of people that tune in and don't know what the hell's they're watching, which I think is pretty rare, to be honest. I think most people come because of the Twitter sphere and they want to hear us talk shit about what's going on the internet.
Sure.
But I don't think that you have a real casual passerby that would tune in and go, "Oh my God, I've just stumbled into a KKK rally. These people are really sincere when they talk about hating. I mean, we don't even talk about hating people. We just use words that you're not allowed to use. The fact that we're laughing afterwards should be a pretty good sign that we're not serious about any of it. So I don't know.
No, because the way the laughter comes off to me is that you're giggling at yourselves, that you're giggling at the fact that you're dropping the N-word like mommy just left for the day.
I think Cole giggles like that. Yeah, I do.
Who are these people that come to your show to listen to the N-word? Are they coming from Stormfront or something? Or
I don't know where they come from, but I'll get back to you after I check. I would
if
imagine
you could
not.
compile a list, that would be fantastic.
LouRockwell.com.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lou probably sends them to you.
Seeing as we're not white nationalists, I think that those people would probably be turned off pretty quickly.
Are you calling Lou Rockwell a white nationalist?
I would.
We have that.
No.
We have that on record.
I think
I'm
we
not
do.
calling
No, I'm
Lou
just
Rockwell
fucking with you there. But I was gonna ask, like, so
I mean, he is, but
so there are
without a
jokes
doubt.
and stuff, and I'm cool with offensive humor. Honestly, I grew up on South Park and all that shit.
Yeah.
What about? Would you say that like calling Ashley Shade a man is hateful?
I mean, what's that called when you don't use
Misgendering or
there's another term for it where you
Okay.
refuse to use their pronouns. I don't know. I mean,
Well, it's
is
just
it
being an
hateful?
asshole.
I think it
Dead
always
naming.
I think it always comes down to intent. I think they have a lot of disagreements with her politically that make them feel as if they can say things that they probably wouldn't do in a more cordial setting. I don't honestly remember them saying that specifically, so I'm kind of defending something I don't even know that it transpired. Do you have an example?
I don't have a timestamp or anything, but I've just seen it. I've seen it around. I mean, I can look for one for you after the episode. I'm not.
Oh no. I mean, I'm sure they've made jokes, but whether or not they actually have any malice towards her, I don't know. And if they do, I think it would have way more to do with what she did. Was she LPMA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's real. Honestly, I'm not deeply involved in the LP, so I don't even know the backstory as to why your opening clip where people are all upset with the former chair. I forget his name. I forget his name, honestly.
Henchman.
Yeah, Henchman. There you go. Perfect name, by the way. I don't know all the backstory on all this stuff, so it's kind of inside baseball, and
Yeah.
I just don't know.
You're better off that way, Clint. You are much better off.
I would imagine. Yeah, it seems really exhausting.
But I mean, I feel like it would be hateful to if you're referring to a trans person. You're not like friends with them or something. Like you're not. It's not like you and your buddy who's trans or something joking around and like.
Well, I think it boils down to whether or not they hate her because she's trans, or if they hate her because of things she's done.
Right, but critique her on things she's done then.
Right, but it's like the same thing you guys are doing. Some of you don't like me, so you've tried to bring up Stormfront and a whole bunch of shit that I would find completely reprehensible.
They're just jokes.
Exactly.
That was a joke. Now, come on, lighten up, crack a smile.
No, that's my whole point.
Put a smile on. Turn that frown upside down.
That's why I'm not upset about it, because I understand what you're doing.
Would you like a hug?
That's my whole point.
So you would say that would Tower Gang type of people, would they only misgender someone as a joke, or would it be out of hatred? You don't think they like if they?
I don't think it would be out of hatred personally, but I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't misgender someone out of hatred for sure. If I were to do it, it would be because I don't like them as a person. But
Kind of the same thing, though. I mean, when you go to that length, it'd be like calling somebody fat or calling somebody baldy. I mean, any way you go, if that's the route you take, then that's childish.
It's lowbrow, absolutely. But I mean, the premise of the show is kind of childish high school banter and humor, and
I'd give it college. I'd say it's more like, if I were going to rate the humor on your show, it's more like it's more like college of a frat that's been suspended. That would be the way I would look at it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think that we are a fraternity that has been suspended. Yeah, that sounds about right.
So do you have any involvement in the LP? I'm curious.
Just recent. I just signed up to be in LP or Mises Caucus, Florida. I just moved, so
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I heard about that through the grapevine.
But
Not trying to dox you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That already happened. Prior to that, no, I was not involved at all. And then I've been reached out to basically tour to the state conventions and give some live speeches to rile up the troops. So that's the extent of my involvement. No, I have not been. I'm not like a lifer or anything like that. I've just kind of been in the periphery as a big Ron Paul convert from way back.
I actually was.
What do you,
believe it or not?
Yeah.
What do you think the purpose of a political party is?
I think it has multiple purposes. Personally, I think that if you are in the duopoly, your point of a political party would be to wield the power of the state. As a ANCAP, I'm not tremendously interested in doing that, except for in the case of self-defense. So I would prefer for the Libertarian Party to be a platform for messaging and waking people up. That's my belief as to its value until it becomes a viable, electable position to run on. But it's not.
Okay, electable. Electable means getting votes, right?
Correct.
Enough votes. So when I, go after someone in the party for a racist tweet, it's because I'm also going to be knocking on doors this summer trying to get votes. And if I'm knocking on a door this summer and someone brings up that LPNH tweet and they haven't been disaffiliated, what am I supposed to say?
They're you want them disaffiliated for that?
Yes, I do.
It's a history of conduct. It's not just one.
Yes, because there's a full history of conduct, and I think that's the only legitimate remedy at this time. And it's a civil war within the party. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Heiss puts it that way as well. So it's not like this is just my idea. And
it's said that it's gotten to this point, but personally, no, I would not want them disaffiliated for that.
And so here's my point, is if I want to get votes as a libertarian messaging has to mean something. There has to be a brand to the marketing that we actually can get votes with. Otherwise, why are we in a party at all?
Right.
So when I go after, what you're calling woke stuff, it's not because I think it's the biggest issue within society at large. I don't think racism or bigotry is the biggest issue in society at large.
Archie,
but it's
a
huge issue within the party.
You think? You think it's
a
huge
issue?
I think,
yes.
Especially with the history there.
It's a huge issue, and it's only getting worse right now.
Well, why is it a huge issue within the party that you think that we have a real racist heritage? Is that your point?
Because of podcasts exactly like yours joking about the N-word.
You think that's enough to make us?
No, I mean
it's not just Tower Gang. There's A podcast, B podcast, C podcast, 120 billion podcast, all with the same stupid frat bro messaging.
Well,
the N-word, haha, I can say the N-word. Well, you know what? It's called hyperbole, my friend.
I mean, most of the people on Tower Gang aren't even like LP, so I just think that this is...
But they are associated with the movement. That's the whole thing. Like if a presidential candidate or ostensible presidential candidate goes on a podcast and jokes around with that podcast, that sends a message.
If everyone's watching it, sure, I guess it could send a message. If it was
okay,
an experience,
no. It's like
someone.
I'm going to cut in for 1 second, Archie. It's like that dude that was portraying the doctor who wanted to kill all the black people. And, I was using a character, therefore it becomes okay. That's kind of the path you're going down right now, Clint.
What's his name,
I don't
Alex?
think that's...
No.
I don't know what that reference was.
It was
on Daily Show. He was on the Daily Show.
He was on some white nationalist thing. He was a paramedic or something like that in maybe somewhere like Tennessee, something like that. And he would do a character on the show, but he would talk about how much he enjoyed, he had a character that was also a paramedic, and he would talk about how much he enjoyed, putting needles into black kids and stuff like that. And he ended up getting fired, but...
Okay, and that's like Tower Gang how? I'm sorry, I'm missing it.
I'm saying it's like Tower Gang because even though your defense continues to be, nobody's listening, nobody's listening. But you know what? What if one or two people are listening? It's one or two new people are listening and they go, you know what? These guys are right. The N word is funny. And then where do they go? They start taking that into higher places and the more places. And I see you laughing, man. That's cool. I mean, maybe you don't think you have that much power, but
no,
like
I don't.
Said, you're libertarian adjacent. When Josh Smith came on your show, he should have been censured immediately and ousted from the party.
Okay.
I wanted to chime in a little bit more with beyond just the podcast aspect. I mean, like, there is a history in the liberty movement of, first of all, people being accused of being racist, and you can say they're being wrongfully accused, but there is that persona or reputation out there. And then there are things like
it's propagated more aggressively by anybody in the movement by y'all.
Exactly, I mean, for a reason. Okay. I'm going to get to it. There were things like the Ron Paul newsletters. There were things like Lou Rockwell publishing a bunch of racist stuff. Hans Hermann Hoppe inviting white nationalists to give speeches about race relations. Hans Hermann Hoppe writing a foreword for Chase Rachel's white, right, and libertarian group. There's been all these people from the libertarian movement who have gone into the alt-right, whether it be Cantwell, Invictus, all those guys. So there's some kind of libertarian to alt-right pipeline out there, whether you disagree on the scope of it or not. There is an idea that pipeline's out there.
I mean, there's a political pipeline that goes all directions. I mean, it's like you have people that have gone libertarian to communists. You have people that have gone libertarian to white nationalists and fascists and every other thing. So I just to portray it as if this is like a problem with the messaging of people that are good libertarians today, I think is nonsensical. If you think that people seeing us joke inappropriately on Tower Gang is going to propel them into white nationalism, I think that you should listen to the show a little bit longer, or go and listen to our more serious platforms like Liberty Lockdown or the Naturalist Capitalist. Like we're extremely not racist people, so the fact that we joke about it, I don't think is going to be appealing in the long term to anybody who is actually and genuinely racist.
I wouldn't say that it's going to convert someone to racism or something like that. I think that it could attract people who are racist and actually like that kind of stuff and kind of bring them.
Would that be so bad?
I mean,
would that be so bad
if they don't shed their racism?
Yeah.
If they're coming into the liberty movement and they keep that racism with them and support things like unleashing the cops or keeping the Mexicans out, I mean, I do think that's an issue. And I'm a radical libertarian myself. I've been an ANCAP since like 2011. Like I do believe in libertarian principles, and I think you're bringing in people that are watering, not you specifically, but I think we're bringing in people that are really watering down those principles on things like immigration and cops and all that.
Well, the immigration one's a challenging one, and did you watch the debate between Dave and Spike?
I did.
What did you think of it?
I'm sided with Spike there, for sure.
Well, of course you sided with him, but I mean, do you not think that there's some merit to the arguments on both sides here?
I don't think there's merit to the argument.
None.
Like I don't think while the government exists, there's merit to limiting the amount of children that someone can have because of the welfare state or because there's public schools and public roads. Like I think it seems very convoluted kind of mental gymnastics. I've kind of always thought that about the Hoppian position, which is where they I've always thought that they kind of arrived at the position before the reasoning and then kind of came up with something to justify it later.
Yep.
Well, we'll agree to disagree there. I think that the fact that we don't have private property rights, that yes, I would agree that borders do suck. However, I think that until you get to a point of having property rights that are acknowledged and honored by the state, I think that there is a compelling argument to be had that you probably can't have anybody who wants to enter if you're going to have welfare and Social Security and all these other programs that are basically like, we live in a collectivized society right now. Should you be
able to have as many kids as you want? Because that's the same thing. There's people entering the society, whether they're coming through the borders or they're being born. I mean, that's more people being added.
Yes, of course, I think you should be able to have as many kids as you want. Yeah.
Then what's the difference in your mind?
What's the difference in my mind between having children as a citizen of this country and allowing
this is just a
anyone to enter?
Term. I mean, it's the same concept of adding another person.
It's the same concept as adding another person. Well, but it has to do with actually allowing people to enter. You guys are going down the line of saying that all borders are imaginary and that that's a statist paradigm, correct?
I mean,
Correct.
The current borders, absolutely. If we're talking about someone's actual property, sure, that's not imaginary.
Well, that's the whole point, is that you still end up violating people's property rights potentially if you just have
if you make them go on their lawn,
you allow hundreds of thousands of people to what's that?
If you allow people to go on people's lawns or something like that, yeah. But
but we don't have enforcement. We don't have enforcement of property rights in this country as it stands today. So you're making it seem as if it's something that's really clean. When either way, I think the whole point that Dave's making is that there is not a purely libertarian argument to be had, because if you're going to have a minarchist state that only defends property rights, they don't do that right now. I mean, they're not doing it, especially in Texas. They're not doing it. So
open the borders and don't let people on people's lawns. Seems problem solved.
Yeah, and what if you have a kid, Clint?
Well, that's still a status.
My lawn. That kid comes onto my lawn, man. My property's been violated.
I'm sorry, say again.
I said, what if you have a kid and that kid comes onto my lawn? I didn't want you having that kid, but you had 7 of them, and all of a sudden those kids are crawling all over my lawn. Now what? My property rights aren't being taken care of.
Well, that would be correct. That you do have a right to keep people off your property. So,
should I shoot them?
But why does it matter if someone's like a citizen versus?
Yeah,
someone,
that's what I don't
someone.
understand.
Let's say someone's born on the other side of the Mexican border. What's the difference?
It's an obvious difference in that you have adults that have capacity to make choices for themselves, whereas kids don't. We're not going to get into that argument, I hope. And then you also have
I'm not Jeremy Kaufman now.
Yeah, well, you have the potential for essentially invasions. You have hundreds of thousands of people that are migrating into a single state month after month. I mean,
But didn't you just move from a state?
Yeah.
So what? Is that okay? That's crossing a state border.
Should have shown your papers.
John didn't give you permission to.
John didn't give you permission to drive down his roads.
Sorry, I missed something. Who's going to invade who?
Apparently, the Mexicans are invading us all now.
What about someone from Great Britain, Clint? Can I come on your lawn?
If I invite you, not you. No.
Oh, ouch! That really. What if I bring beer?
We could talk then.
We can talk on the lawn, right?
As long as you.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
Too crazy, yeah.
As long as it's 12 shots.
I'll bring the finest Scottish whiskey. You'll love it.
I don't want to go 12 shots deep. Anyways.
12 shots in, and all the Mexicans are able to come over the border.
I mean, do you honestly think that it would be okay to just have open borders in this current paradigm where anybody that wants to come in? Really?
100%.
So with the fact that we've destroyed all these countries, and you do obviously have a legitimate terrorist threat, that you would just say, hey, anybody from war-torn Syria, Afghanistan, if you can get a flight here, fuck it. Come on in.
People already can get in. I mean,
and so that's going to cause terrorism. What about the Oath Keepers then, man? I mean, you're just going down all these weird little roads.
What about the Oath Keepers? What?
Yeah, you're talking about terrorism. The Oath Keepers are right here. I mean, look at what they just did.
I don't even know who the Oath Keepers are.
He's talking about that Stuart Rhodes guy who just got charged for January 6th
insurrection.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that there are plenty. The argument that people
you're arguing that January 6th was terrorism.
Yeah, I kind of am.
That's a.
Well, you don't think so? You
Not
don't
even
know.
close.
What I think is bizarre is that what do you think it was then?
I think it was a riot.
Okay. Yeah, it was a riot with the purpose of overthrowing the U.S. government.
I just don't think that's at all attached to reality of what those people were actually calling for the most part. So
well,
so
they were they were
up.
calling for the installment of a dictator because they were sad he lost.
Well,
so what you're saying is my argument doesn't hold weight with that, just like your argument doesn't hold weight with all of a sudden all the Mexicans are going to be terrorists. I mean, you're saying the exact same thing, only
I didn't
worse.
say Mexicans would be terrorists at all.
No, you didn't. You said people coming over the borders would be terrorists.
I said, with the war on terror, do you think it would be safe to open the borders entirely?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
well, I disagree.
I would settle for an Ellis Island. I would settle for an Ellis Island kind of system.
Okay. Well, that's not purely open borders. So there is arguments to be had, is what I'm saying.
I mean, that's defined as open borders by a lot of people at the least. It's not like anything like what we have now, or it's not the Hoppian system. I mean,
I agree. What we have now is basically a hybrid worst of both worlds option. We have allegedly closed borders that are wide open. It's a disaster. But I think that there's a reason for debate on this topic. That like, I think most of us do have a similar end goal in mind. However, we're so far away from that. I honestly think it's a complete waste of time for us to be arguing over it. But for the sake of your show, I'm happy to do so. It's not my priority because we're dealing with essentially totalitarianism.
Would you be okay with a, let's say, peaceful person from Mexico, background check and everything, disease check? Would you be okay with them coming to the country?
Yeah, personally, yes, and without the disease check too, I'd be fine with that.
No, that's fair then.
So, Clint, do you actually think that the current border controls are stopping terrorists?
I don't think that they're stopping them on an individual level, but in aggregate, I think there could be an argument to be had. There's no way I could prove it. I mean, it'd be like arguing that the TSA or the NSA has stopped terrorism in this country. But if you guys are going to make the argument that January 6th was a terrorist incursion, I
don't
honestly
think anything successful or anything close to it.
Even to believe that it was an attempted coup is just so like. You honestly think that those people...
I think it was in the minds of some people. And I don't think they had any chance of pulling it off. I think there were some idiots that were like, we're going to take the capital.
I'm glad to hear that you believe that they didn't have a chance of prevailing.
No, I will agree with that too. I will definitely agree with that as well. I'm not saying
they absolutely had no shot. They would not have had a realistic
something
shot.
We agree on when it comes to January 6th. Now,
but there were people there that were chanting about hanging Mike Pence, and there were people threatening Pelosi's life, and had certain things gone just a little bit differently, they might have been. And so that, I'm not saying it should be blown out of proportion, and I'm not saying we should worship the halls of Congress like a lot of people on the left do.
Great.
But at the same time, it shouldn't be dismissed as a complete nothing burger. There was something there. It was fomented on purpose. And to just dismiss that out of hand is to bury your head in the sand.
I think that the reason that people want to dismiss it is because so much of the violence from the left was dismissed over that same exact year. So a lot of people feel as if there's a disproportionate response, and I can't help but agree with them. There has been. I mean, the fact that they're labeling these people terrorists and putting them in prison without trial, I think it's reasonable for us to speak about that and say that that's fucking insane.
But here's the thing. Like, a lot of what I see from your side of the quote-unquote liberty movement, which is disintegrating as we speak, is simply pushback against the left. Like, if the left were to say the sky is blue, you would say it must be green. That's how it looks from where I sit. And it's just raw contrarianism to just contradict the other person.
Yeah, well, I would say that you are pretty symbolic of the reactionary side of the LP or the libertarian movement or the liberty movement or whatever that is contrarian just to be contrary when it comes to anything that we do or say. I mean, the fact that you capitalized on the fact when I was doxxed to try and make an argument about it just being words, it's like these are reactionary, tribalistic, war footing type things that you're doing too. So I don't have any interest in going down this path with you guys where it's like you're my enemies. I've never felt that way. I've even said as much.
You wouldn't let me on your lawn, though.
It was a joke, but yeah, I don't know you, so no, I wouldn't let you on my lawn.
If we're not enemies, let me on your lawn. Let's have a barbecue.
We might. You'd have to not be anonymous, and I'd have to know.
You keep leaving it like 50-50, so
I don't
you
know
can tell
you.
to fuck off.
I don't know you.
But you can get to know me on your lawn. I'm a really nice guy. I like.
You might be. You might be. I don't know.
Invite me on your lawn.
No, let's talk a little bit further first.
Okay.
Clint, I want to throw this out there to you, man. I want to say I'm very sorry about you getting doxxed. I kind of peripherally watch that play out. What I normally do is I jump on Twitter, I say a few rude things, and then I get back off. It's just kind of a way to let off some steam. And I agree with you. I don't want to be enemies with people as people. That is not something I look for. And I was doxxed myself some years back by a member of the Proud Boys, and it's kind of terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. So yeah, man. So I kind of know what you went through there, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I want you to know,
did you get doxxed on Christmas too?
No, it was not Christmas. I didn't have that sort of a present. Thank God. It was. I remember it was like late morning, and I was sitting at my office, and I had an unread message over in the spam folder of Messenger at the time. I opened it, and it's this Proud Boy giving my name, location, where I work, all kinds of stuff, and then
it's awful, man. I don't understand why people take it to that level.
I get doxxed like every month, but it's like some guy in Nevada. It's like, oh, I've got your address. Okay, well, if you want to fly to fucking Heathrow and come and get me, go ahead.
Your address is just public record at this point, Josh.
Literally, it fucking is. Like these days, when someone goes, "I'm going to dox you," I just give them my address.
I think that your point about us being reactionary towards the left is largely a product of the fact that all of the major institutions are controlled by the left at this point. Do you disagree with that?
I would definitely say that society has a lot of its institutions under control by the left, but there's still, and we have to remember left and right now, according to quote unquote mainstream American politics, are really both super authoritarian. So we're really talking, rather than left per se, we're really talking
top versus bottom,
blue versus red.
It's more like light authoritarianism versus heavy-handed authoritarianism is what we have. We don't really have a left in this country.
Well,
I mean, I would consider myself more left if all is said and done. But here's the thing, Clint. I've been, and this is kind of a point I like to make, and this kind of comes from the heart and everything. I've been around this movement a long, long time. This isn't something that I suddenly just stumbled into. We're going back to the early 2000s when at the radio station I was running at, I did a series interviewing Michael Badnarik when he was running for LP president at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a newcomer to this. I don't come in from a right wing or a left wing perspective. In fact, in those days, I was listening to so much Alex Jones, my head should have exploded. But, he always had that tagline in those days I really liked. It's not left or right. And that's always how I've looked at it. So it's interesting to me to see how what Archie's talking about here, I kind of watch this play out. And my big thing is confusion. My thing is, how did this happen? And I can tell you how it happened. It happened with the brutalist split. I mean, I'm a bit of a historian when it comes with all of these things because I've watched it. I've been there. I've been to Porkfest. I've done all that kind of stuff over the years. And so it really happened there. And I think that's been the biggest problem within libertarianism is this left-right divide and righties calling lefties lefties and lefties calling righties righties. We've completely misused the terms. I know we used to always, as libertarians, be against the communists, but now it seems like anyone who is of any sort of a left-wing slant is suddenly just an all-out freaking commie and, wanting to march for Trotsky or something. And so there's this extremist view on both sides, and that's just not helpful to anybody.
Well, I don't actually disagree that it is not helpful to label anyone that has more left-leaning social views as a commie or revving up the helicopter. I will say though, I think that there is a problem with there being a predominance of wokeness when it comes to left libertarians. So that's a collectivist assessment. It's a broad statement. I'm not saying that all, obviously. I get along with many people that are more left-leaning libertarians, and I think that I am probably more socially liberal than a lot of the Hoppian types. I mean, undoubtedly I am. These people are many of them are basically like Bible thumpers at this point. So I definitely,
which is also really weird to me.
Go ahead. I mean, I agree it's weird, but what else about it?
That's all I was going to say. I find that weird as heck, all the Bible thumping. Like, that's relatively new. I mean, you always had that kind of in the underground with Gary North. kind of the Woodsian Catholicism, but it wasn't really talked about. That was kind of like kept in their little groups and clubs. And then suddenly it all kind of rose out, and you can kind of see that's where so many of these libertarian views are coming from. They're not coming from libertarianism. They're coming from personal preferences of religion, society, who your neighbor is, that sort of thing. So I argue that while so many are on the right, so to speak, are calling themselves like pure libertarianism, I think they have more of that so-called wokeness in them than a lot on the so-called left do.
Could we have a woke party on your lawn?
I'll bring the weed.
I'll try not to get distracted by the lawn comments. I think that there's a natural outgrowth or increase in kind of religiosity across the country right now, because you have institutions that are crumbling, the state is crumbling, and people are seeking answers. And historically, that's what people do during trying times. They kind of have a reemergence of kind of religious fervor. So I think it's natural. I'm not even like trying to fight it per se. I'm just saying that I do find it surprising. You know, it's like not surprising in that it's arising, but it's surprising that it's happening within the libertarian movement as significantly as it seems to. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being religious either. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I just think that once you get into a point of having state enforced religious beliefs, you get into really dangerous territory. And I hope that we can keep those beliefs separate and keep people as being good libertarians.
The separation of church and state, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would like to see the demolition of the state. So
well, no, I understand what you're saying, but if you had a state, you would prefer that the...
Of course.
Of course, yeah. No, I agree.
And Clint, you know that there are some, and this is where a lot of my problems is. I mentioned Gary North a minute ago. You know, that's his idea of libertarianism, is to replace the state with some sort of a Christendom and return to the, biblical law, whatever that might be. So I find people like that inherently dangerous when they're seen as liberty keepers, when in fact it's anything but what the end goal and end game is.
I don't know his belief system well enough to argue it, but I would tend to agree that I'm not interested in replacing the state with some sort of Christian monarch or anything like that. So
the Queen?
No, I would not want a queen.
Are you sure?
Only if I'm
don't be
queen.
Sexist. I only want a king. Come on.
1776 was a mistake, maybe. Yeah, can I swing you over to my side?
A mistake. Interesting. I mean, I
don't mean that literally, but yeah.
No, but I think there is a fair argument to be had that we were treated much better than we are from the American government.
Let me just notify Lizzie now. She's going to be really impressed by you.
All right, I wanted to touch on one other thing. Are you familiar with the whole, because it's been coming up a lot over the last few months, the whole Rothbard Unleash the Cops thing from that right-wing populism article? What are your thoughts on that?
I was on part of the problem with Dave.
Okay, so the whole thing about...
After he brought it up, so yeah.
Yeah, I thought I remember that.
Yeah.
I keep up on this stuff a little bit, but...
I think that this is all part of the same argument that's being had when it comes to the open borders versus limited immigration crowd. You basically have this paradigm where you're like, you have the anarchist versus the minarchist response, and I think that Rothbard was arguing that if you're going to have a state-run police force, which is obviously a statist answer and not what our preference is to begin with, but if you're going to have it, you have to have them be liable when they violate people's rights. And if they are liable, then unleashing them to defend property rights is probably the more libertarian answer under a statist paradigm. So it's a very nuanced argument, but I completely understand why people's knee-jerk reaction to it is to say, well, that's awful.
Part of it was doling out instant punishment. I mean, do we want even like a private situation? I wouldn't want, even if they technically could be held liable, and who knows how that would work, because cops aren't held liable, and who knows what the evidentiary standard for that would be. Do we really want cops going around, and let's say there's like someone who's accused of robbing someone, do we really want cops going around beating the shit out of that person, even if they might be held liable if it's found they didn't rob them. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I don't think that you can trust the state to hold itself liable. If you could, that could potentially be an okay answer, but this is a hypothetical that I think is detached from reality. I don't think that you could actually get the state to hold their foot soldiers liable. So I'm not like a firm believer in Rothbard's position here, but I think that it's a reasonable question to ask, especially when you have property rights that are being violated. Like, do you want the police to enforce them? You know, as a libertarian who believes that I would like the police to be privatized, if they are not privatized, do I still want them to defend my property rights?
Well, I mean,
some
but
libertarians would say no. And
there's a difference between enforcing, like arresting someone for robbing someone and beating the shit out of that person for robbing someone. You know what I mean? There's two different things there.
I honestly have not read where he said beat the shit out of them.
I mean, unleash the cops to dole out instant punishment doesn't sound like arrest them, because we already have cops who arrest people.
Doesn't he reference the bums and the drug addicts or something like that?
Yeah,
in there?
that's the next number in that article.
Yeah, and see, it's the vagrants. Yeah, it's that intermixing of social desires with unleashing the cops that I think is really unsettling about that whole passage.
Well, I mean, if you're unsettled by it, that's totally fine. It also makes me uncomfortable to talk about unleashing the cops. I mean, it is at first glance, I think it is completely proper for any libertarian to go, excuse me, you know, what? But out of respect for Rothbard, I think it's also reasonable to listen to his entire ideas and make sure that you take it within context. And I think that there are compelling arguments to be had that if you're in a statist paradigm and you can make them liable, that you might want them enforcing the whole debate was about Dave wanting to take his daughter to a park and there being homeless drug addicts that are strewn about. And it's like, yeah, I think that is a fair position for a libertarian to take, to say, yes, I do not want drug addicts in a park that is intended for children. Now, is it statist?
Could
yes.
you unleash them off the side of Hoover Dam?
I was going to say, like I said, there's a difference between unleashing them and just having them like arrest someone who's breaking the law. Like I don't think those are the same thing.
I mean, you get into a semantics argument. I don't know what he meant specifically by unleashing them.
Like, what could instant punishment mean? And I mean, that's not arresting them. Because,
I mean, cops already have the right for instant punishment. If they see someone that's committing a violent crime, they have the capacity to use lethal force. So it's like,
right, but that's not punishment. That's stopping them from doing something, and that was already a thing. So if it's already a thing, he's not calling for something new by saying that, and he's clearly calling for something new by saying that in that passage.
Well, I'm not sure that's the case. I mean, he's saying that he wants them unleashed, which is implying that
they're not leashed. That means they're leashed right now.
Right. But you're jumping to the conclusion that he means beat the shit out of them,
instant
as opposed.
Punishment.
Well, that's what you're reading that as. I don't know that he means
instant punishment is. Right now we have a system where
forcibly removing them could be that they weren't doing it, and he's calling for them to do it. The same thing that Dave is arguing for.
Like in the criminal section, he said for the instant punishment thing, he said like thieves or muggers. What's instant punishment? Because punishment is usually doled out right now in the prison system, which I have my own issues with. But that's what would instant punishment be besides some not lethal force, but beating them up. Like there was that Lou Rockwell op-ed from the LA Times around the Rodney King riots in 1991, where he makes that quip at the end about how I'm gonna misquote it here, but he's saying something like he's seeing a problem with or he kind of wants to ban video cameras because he's saying that cops used to be able to beat up street criminals and now they can't because everyone can see it with the video cameras, and how that makes an incentive to commit more crimes or something like that. And they wouldn't be like there was an incentive before, or a disincentive to commit crimes before, because cops would just beat you up and it wouldn't be on video. But now that it's on video, there's a problem there. So it kind of jives with that whole thing, because Rockwell and Rothbard were working together at the time, and both of these articles came out around the same time. It was both early 90s, so I imagine they were kind of fused together like that.
I really couldn't say. I didn't read it that way. I don't read Unleash the Cops as... I read it personally as you're unleashing them to enforce these laws. Now, there's a very legitimate libertarian argument that you don't want them unleashed to enforce these laws, and I think that that would be a reasonable position to take. But I personally don't read it as he wants them to go in there with batons and beat up the homeless or the drug addicts. It's like, I think that he was probably dealing with a similar hypothetical that we're dealing with now, where you have people who are strewn about, drug-addled, and also robbing stores throughout California and San Francisco in particular, where they're not enforcing property rights. And I think that is, again, kind of the worst of both worlds, where you have a monopoly on defense with the police, but then you do not have them enforcing the laws that we do agree with, which is defending people and their property. So it's like we're in the worst possible situation, and I personally don't see much value in arguing or defending Rothbard's position when it comes down to what we're actually up against, which is the worst of both worlds.
You're kind of watering down the word unleash there. I mean, they're not unleashing the cops to go buy people sandwiches and tell them they've lost weight, are they?
No, it could be
I want to read I'm going to read the entire quote here real quick. Number 5 of his points. Take back the streets.
Yeah, that one.
Get rid of the bums. Okay, again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Do the violent criminals one, because that's kind of what we're talking about. And then we'll move on from this, because we're just going to go in circles about this for like forever. But
yeah, exactly.
I would like to.
So you're talking about this, and by this I mean, of course, not white collar criminals or inside traders, but violent street criminals, robbers, muggers, rapists, murderers. Cops must be unleashed and allowed to administer instant punishment, subject, of course, to liability when they are in error. My reason for bringing the other above is since it leads right into it. Yeah, I mean, what he says is, again, unleash the cops to clear the streets of bums and vagrants. Where will they go? Who cares? Hopefully they will disappear, move from the ranks of the petted and cosseted bum class to the ranks of the productive members of society. At worst, it's an incredibly hateful statement. At best, it's just very ignorant on Mr. Rothbard's part.
Well, I don't think highly enough of myself to call Rothbard ignorant. He could be wrong here, but I don't know. I think I've already explained my position on it.
We would go in circles if we kept going on this.
Yeah,
you definitely have. I just wanted to read that. I'm not asking for anything from you, Clint.
Yeah, and as I've said, I think it's totally reasonable for you guys to.
Gentlemen, I am having crazy technical difficulties over on this end. I am going to bail. Good night, Clint. Thank you so much. It was very nice meeting you. Hopefully you will unblock me and maybe we can have some better discourse.
Sounds good, man. I'll do that.
All right. So do we have anything else we want to touch on before we wrap up tonight? Clint, you can chime in too.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's been this, and call me completely naive to think that there's a capacity for peacemaking here, but I think that you guys are convinced that there is a lot of malice and mean-spiritedness and I don't know, like verging on evil that comes from quote unquote my camp. Like I'm able to look at your camp and say, I disagree with these people, but I see that in my belief, you guys are coming from a good place. And I just don't understand why it's so hard for you to see that from our side. So if you could explain that to me, is it simply the language we use that makes it?
The anti-trans tweet where they were being hanged and it were over this last summer?
Yes.
That's why we think that. Not of you per se, but of your camp. Because every time we say that's inappropriate, oh, it was just a joke. Oh, they shouldn't take it so hard. Oh, why are you prioritizing trans rights over other things? If we agree about these other things, we should be able to just work together. Well, transgender people are people, and they have just as much bodily autonomy as you and I do. And that's the whole ball of wax is bodily autonomy, isn't it? Because that speaks to self-ownership, that speaks to consent or not consent, that speaks to every other human right. So when transgender rights are attacked, you are literally attacking all of human rights.
Are they attacked by libertarians?
By people who claim that title, sure. When the meme
explain how their rights have been attacked, because if that's the case, I'd like to disagree with them.
By dehumanizing them, as if they don't belong to the human race at all.
Well,
by delegitimizing their.
I think this is the problem is that you read in edgy, inappropriate humor as actually thinking
That's
that these
not
people
edgy
don't
or
have
inappropriate humor. That's not a joke.
Yeah,
it's
not a
literal
joke. There's no
harassment.
punchline.
It's just
Yeah,
being an
I mean-
asshole.
It was directed
Right,
at a
just being an
trans
asshole.
person. I will say
I mean,
that.
let's
Was it, though?
be
I thought
clear
it
here.
wasn't.
Yeah, it was actually. We know the person it was directed at.
Okay, I didn't know that.
If that kind of meme where someone is being hanged was directed at someone you cared about, would you really think, oh, they must have just been joking?
I mean, it's context, man. If you think that they're joking, then they're joking, and if you think that they're not, then they're not. And you guys obviously think that they're not. I don't think that they seriously wish ill will towards trans people, and I do think that they would respect their rights. Now, they may disagree with their lifestyle. I mean, that's their purview, not mine. So I won't assume how they feel about it, but I just don't agree with you guys that there is an actual hatred or a willingness to get rid of their rights like that. That's
Depicting someone as being hung is not hatred.
Well,
really?
There's humor that's intended,
Humor
whether or not
in hanging
it lands.
someone. You're gonna have to go through that one with me, mate.
There's jokes about the Holocaust, man. I mean, there is humor that can be
typically from the far right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, there can be humor that's attempted
there can be
with
offensive
any
humor.
topic.
Like I get that, but that it seems again like the guy we had on before was talking about. I think intent is kind of where it comes down in terms of whether it's a problem or not.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, but I can't know everybody's intent that's making these jokes, and I read them as jokes. You guys read them as serious affronts to these people's rights. I just think that the truth is probably somewhere in between, and I don't know. But at the same time, I just don't think that there's this real drive within the liberty movement to like otherize trans people in a way that takes their rights away. I mean, it's right-wing humor is punch down. Well,
what if someone depicted hanging me on your lawn? What would you think?
I think after this, I think it's pretty funny because I would understand that it's an attempt at humor. I mean, it's contextual. Like this, it always requires context, and I don't honestly. I remember the meme. I do not remember the lead up to it, or like.
I think we can all agree it's in poor taste, though, can't we?
Yeah,
it's in
of
poor
course.
taste. Yeah, and it's not really humor. It's not really humor. It's just a bit foul.
I'll disagree with you there. I think that it has the capacity to be humorous, but
yeah, it has I mean, the people that fucking hate this person probably find it funny for sure.
No, the people that hate you guys can find it funny because they understand it's going to make you very upset. So this is all part of like the troll culture that you guys read as like actual deep-seated hatred for minorities, when oftentimes it's just hatred for people that are woke.
That suggests it's not human. Then that suggests that you're.
So the next time I call Dave Smith a transphobe, you're going to laugh because it's obviously a joke, or you're going to be like, "That woke Archie."
If it's coming from a place of humor, sure, I would laugh. But is it? It seems as if you think that these people are actually transphobic.
So it's based on intent, and yet you're willing to take a hanging meme as a joke at face value.
No, I just said that I don't know the context. I read it personally as an attempt at humor. I read your attempts at calling people transphobic as sincere and legitimate, and I think that they're misplaced. So, am I wrong? Do you not think that he's transphobic?
I do believe that he is. Yes, when he talks with Chris Cantwell and uses anti-trans slurs with a neo-Nazi. Yeah, that was not a joke on his part. Am I saying he's like, the absolute worst in terms of transphobia? I don't think so.
You think he honestly fears trans people? Like,
it's not a matter of fear. It's not a matter of fear.
I mean,
well, do you think he wants them to have less rights?
Hatred or fear is generally like transphobia.
Do you think that he wants them to have less rights?
I think he doesn't care about their rights.
I think that's absurd. Why would you say that? Why would you think that he doesn't care about their rights?
Because I don't think he's genuine in his libertarianism.
Oh, that's just sad. Have you ever met him?
In person, no.
I wish you guys could have a beer and sit down. He's a really good person. I think that
I'm not drinking any alcohol near Dave Smith.
I tried to have a beer. You won't let me on your lawn.
I am not drinking even 12 drops of alcohol around Dave Smith. I'm making that clear right now.
Okay. Well, you've obviously made up your mind, and I think
I'll tell you what.
So
we will come to your lawn and we will all have a beer. How about that? See,
Maybe.
you still disagree. You keep saying let's have a beer, but then you're like, no.
That's my fucking lawn, man. You want to go to a bar? We could.
We'll stand on the sidewalk then. All right, so we don't step on your beautiful blades.
Public property.
What about the wharf?
I honestly think that you've got it all wrong, Archie, and it's sad. It's sad that you read that as him actually not respecting their rights or even caring about their rights. I just think that's total nonsense. I mean, the only difference of opinion that I think is a merited discussion to be had when it comes to quote unquote trans rights is whether or not children should be taking hormone therapy. And I think that there's real reason to be concerned about that. Now, beyond that, though, I don't think that anyone that I've seen that you guys consider transphobic are actually arguing for them to have less rights. Like it's such a stretch. Instead of just saying like, I don't think these people talk about trans issues enough, you go to this extreme of them being transphobic, and I just don't understand it.
I mean, you can be transphobic and still want them to have rights too. I mean, there's a medium there. I mean, I still would have an issue with the transphobia in general, but if we're talking nuance there,
yeah, that's fine.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up from anybody?
No, I think.
Come on, you guys got something else for me.
No, I
Do we
definitely.
want to okay. Do we want to talk? Do we want to talk Fuentes?
I don't know. I don't know
Fuentes.
Fuentes.
Time for the lawn.
Oh, come on.
I want a date and time for the lawn. When am I coming to your lawn, Clint? Right, that's your name.
Yeah, February 1st, buddy. I'll see you then.
February fucking 1st. Yeah, you didn't really give me a lot of time, did you? Bloody hell.
It's 2 weeks. It's a flight away.
Yeah, thanks.
So Nick Fuentes, what about him? You want me to condemn him?
Do it. I want to hear that. I know you're trying to get him on.
Nick Fuentes. I don't know Nick Fuentes personally, and I have only literally I think the only times I've ever heard him speak is when he's debating Dave Smith or going on part of the problem. So
going on part of the problem. There's no debate that's ever had.
Oh, he literally just debated him a month ago. So
yeah, that wasn't a debate.
It was. It was a debate. You may feel that they didn't disagree enough. Is that your contention?
No, it wasn't a debate. That's my contention. It was not a debate. But
it was a supposed
an
debate.
assertion. But what is? I mean, that's it. That's all you had about Nick Fuentes. You just
I thought you would know something about him by now because it's like.
No, I mean he's fucking like 15, 20 years younger than me. I've totally missed his entire rise to popularity. I don't know. All I know is that he's a groiper, whatever that means, and that he was a Trump supporter that now doesn't support Trump. I think.
Groper? I misheard that. Did you
Groiper.
say
The
Groiper?
Fuentes frog people thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know much about him. If you have any of his particular ideology that you'd like me to disavow, feel free. I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not even a nationalist. I don't support theocracy. So.
Okay.
Treating women like they're treated.
I'm not even religious. What's that?
I said one of them is treating women like they're treated in Saudi Arabia. That's one of his policy points.
Well, that sounds egregious. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds fucking shit. That's a fucking shit policy.
You disavowed a little bit of Nick Fuentes, so we got that out of you.
I disavowed quite a bit of it. Honestly, if the things that I've heard about him, if the accusation that he's a white nationalist is true, I totally disagree with that. But I don't know if that's true. Do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's true. I'm not going to try to prove it to you here because I'm not going to pull up a bunch of clips and turn this into a Nick Fuentes
of course.
episode.
You know what I'm about to ask you, Clint. If he is a white nationalist, would you allow him on your lawn? Now, if you say yes to this and you didn't let me on my fucking lawn, there's gonna be problems.
No, he has the same open invite. February 1st, we got Hilditch and
what?
and
Me,
Fuentes.
him, like,
Hey, I'll show up.
match. Yeah, go on then.
we're gonna have a debate for the ages. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's perplexing to me that you guys obsess over this guy so much. He has been nuked from like every single platform. Even fucking Getter nuked him right away.
I saw that.
Well, what is your concern with him? Do you really think that this guy has such a tremendous amount of power? Fuentes is a white nationalist and he sucks. There you go.
The dude has a pretty huge following, and I'm kind of worried about that following finding its way into the liberty movement on those edges between the alt-right and libertarianism.
See, this is where again I disagree. Is that I like it when people are going down a bad path and then they stumble into something that I believe in, which is equal rights and libertarian ideology.
It depends on if they just call themselves libertarian in name and still have the same shitty views and just try to justify them with mental gymnastics versus actually becoming a libertarian.
If people are interested in harnessing power to implement their racist ideology, they're not going to be using libertarianism as the vehicle for that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. They're going to be seeking GOP power most likely because there's more fertile ground for that over there. So I think that the fear is far overstated, and I don't understand it. I don't understand why you guys are so concerned with it, honestly.
You know who David Hogg is?
I sure do.
Would you want him to join the LP and not change a single view he has?
No, and I wouldn't want Nick Fuentes to join the LP if he was a white nationalist.
Okay.
I mean...
did we lose John?
No, he just said 1 sec.
He said 1
okay.
sec. So. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I want a gun grabber or a racial segregationist to be in the Libertarian Party, but that's
we can agree on both of those.
Yeah,
well, there's some
great.
Progress.
Yeah,
I missed whatever we were talking about, but
now you're going to be like disavowed by Dave.
I'll be disavowed by Dave for saying that I don't want a racial segregationist.
Just as fast as Eric Rodsep was banned.
Can we get a happy birthday, Joe Bishop henchman out of you?
No, I don't know.
That's a bridge too far.
That is indeed a bridge too far.
But the N word on the channel. Oh, that's fine.
I'll say happy birthday, Cole, since we're talking about the N word. That's his favorite. I don't have enough information about Henchman other than a lot of people think that he was involved in some really dirty stuff. You guys apparently think that he is worthy of honorifics and happy birthday from me.
Yeah.
If he ran for chair again, I would vote for him in a New York minute.
Is that because he prioritizes trans rights?
No, it's because he has a principled view of libertarianism, and he has also he's kind of quiet about this. He's not flashy and into marketing like maybe he should be, because he really has fought the state more than a lot of libertarians. He has kept billions of dollars out of tax coffers. Mm-hmm. So he fights the IRS on the regular, and he wins pretty regularly, and he has defended taxpayers in many venues. So
he's an accountant, isn't he?
He's an attorney.
He's a lawyer.
Is he a tax attorney?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a tax attorney, yes, by your job title, you are going to be withholding some funds from the state, and that's great.
Billions.
Okay, awesome. It hasn't collapsed the state, but I do appreciate his service in that regard. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up tonight?
Come on, give me some.
Happy birthday, Joe.
What are you looking for?
I would like to understand, like, what exactly are you guys looking for? You just want us to stop using the N word? That's it? That's the whole ask here? You want us to talk about trans rights more often? I don't understand what your concern is with the
what do you guys call yourself? The tower? What kind of tower is it?
Tower Power Hour Tower Gang?
Tower Gang. I mean, you sound like a really weird Camelot like sort of shoot off. Can you change it a bit so it's?
I don't think I'll be changing the name of the show for you. Sorry. If you have
come on,
anything...
mate. Come on. Come on, I've been nice all podcasts. You got to give me something.
We'll debate it on February 1st on my lawn. Apparently,
I'll give you that one.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, like, do you really think that there's a we should be canceled? We shouldn't do the show? Is that your position? Like, I'm honestly, I don't understand like what your outlook is, because I don't think that you guys should stop doing your show. So what is it that you want?
Yeah, well, we don't say the N-word though.
Well, yeah.
I don't feel like you should be canceled or banned.
Yeah, I mean, you're entitled to say what you want to say.
Right.
Okay,
it's just
nice.
think about the movement as a whole. You're attached to it, and whether or not you mean something, as a joke or not, people are going to perceive things in a different way, even if you don't intend. Even if your intent is completely innocent, that if you put it out into the world, people are going to interpret things in a different way. And so just think about that, because when you have, good libertarians, you have people spreading messages, and then they have to come back and defend and try to excuse some of the shit. We obviously don't defend you, but to have to continually excuse that and try to say, well, no, that's not what we were about. Now, when LPNH tweets something incredibly stupid, that sets the liberty movement back, because people are turned off by that. So
people are also turned off by prioritizing, social justice-y language, which is what I think a lot of people push back against your sect. Do you see?
Let me give you a scenario.
You're not about to call me a soy boy,
keep in mind though too, we the liberty movement is a small pond, so people want to push back against us. If they're, I guess I lost my chain of thought. ADD moment there. So I totally lost it.
Here's my point with it is, you have a different perspective than we do. I think I'll just speak for myself. I think that there is too much sensitivity and caution when it comes to how people speak about issues. What I'm more interested in is having people that are courageously speaking out. And if I have to be on a stupid platform where we say inappropriate things to give people a sense of courage, that like there is a popular movement that exists that is embracing kind of unpopular opinions, unpopular truths. Not all of them are truths when it comes to Tower Gang, obviously, but I like the fact that there is a movement against the woke narrative that we have to otherize and treat people as if they're lesser to some extent when it comes to racial minorities, sexual minorities, things like that. It's like, I like to joke with these people. I like to have them on the show. I like to treat them as if they are my peer, because that's how I view them. I genuinely feel that what you're doing when you progress this like really hypersensitive worldview is that you're otherizing and you're treating them as if they are not your peer. Do you see any merit to that, or is this completely white nationalist talking points that I'm delivering?
No, I don't think it's a white nationalist talking point. I don't think you're correct there. I think racism itself is otherizing a lot of people, and certain rhetoric that's used is otherizing a lot of people. But I don't think
of course, if
you're
actually a racist
there, I don't think you're.
If you're actually racist, it is also a problem. This is what I'm saying, is that there is a middle ground where you're not racist, but you also treat people as if they're just another human being on this planet, and you don't have to look out for their feelings.
You should be treating people like human beings. I mean,
right. My point is, when you guys talk about trans people as if they have to be protected in some way, that they can't handle a joke or a ribbing, it just doesn't make sense to me. Now, if someone is genuinely wishing death upon them, I completely understand you being bothered by it. I just wish that you would read into it, read the room a little bit prior, and say to yourself, do I actually believe that? Do I actually think that these people are coming from a place of such serious malice, or are they trying to upset people like me? And am I feeding into it by getting upset? that would be my advice to you.
I mean,
but
I guess we just disagree on the motivation, because I think I'm not talking about you specifically. I can't read into your brain and heart there kind of thing, but I do think a lot of people are coming at it from serious malice. I guess that's just a.
Well, isn't it right in the United States that trans people are subject to like one of the highest rates of attacks in all of the United States? Physical attacks. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
they are.
Well, that's why we stick up for them. Because they're always getting beat on by some wanker somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
So, I mean,
sticking
we
up,
should
sticking up for
stand
them
up.
is fine
Yeah.
when it comes to actual violence.
You
but
should join
when it
us,
comes-
Clint.
when it
Join
comes to
us.
humor-
Come over here. Forget the tower. The tower's rubbish.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, of course, if people are being, violently assaulted, I completely understand defending them. I just think that when it comes to jokes or humor, it treats them as if they're lesser, and that's the it requires nuance and walking a fine line of treating them as if,
in the climate currently, when they're getting beaten up all the time, you're kind of contributing to it by punching down.
yeah, I don't buy the entire argument of bunch.
You can talk about the high suicide rate there too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
and
tragic.
Again, it does come down to intent, whether it's good natured or not, or if you're genuinely.
Can't you pick
trying
on
to
Joe
be hateful.
Biden? Go pick on Joe Biden. I mean, I made a joke about.
I do every single
Should
day.
I bring that joke up, John, or is that a bit too much?
I don't remember what you're talking about.
I think I know what it was, but I can't remember.
No, I agree that our focus should be on the people that are actually, implementing what I view as totalitarianism across the planet. So, yeah, I totally agree that should be our priority. I'm just saying that I think that there is also room for allowing humor that is about
humor. That's
everything.
not my problem.
Well, yeah, I know, but you differentiate and say there's no humor there, so therefore it's bigoted and dangerous. And it's like, well, I'm arguing that there is an attempt at humor there. So, anyways, we've gone in circles on this.
We have.
Yeah.
May I give you a scenario?
Yes,
Okay,
I love these hypotheticals, Archie.
It's 2024. Dave has been nominated as the LP candidate, and he picks you as his campaign manager. During an interview on mainstream media, a clip comes up where Dave actually says the N-word, hard R, with Richard Spencer. How do you talk to the media about that particular clip?
Did this happen?
Yes.
And did he say it out of malice, or was it contextual? Was he quoting something? I don't have any.
I think
He was not quoting anything.
You sure? Oh, I thought it was.
I don't believe he was quoting anything.
I think he was talking about a scenario, though. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah, it doesn't. I find it very hard to believe that he would just go on his show with Richard Spencer and start dropping hard ER N bombs. But yeah, I mean, I would. The obvious answer is that you're going to pivot it towards the media being out to get him and trying to craft a narrative to undermine his positions, which are not racist. They are libertarian to their core. So I would just handle it probably how Trump would in demonstrating that the media is lying.
With an actual clip, they're lying.
Well, I would argue that you are behaving how the media does right now, trying to take something that, one, I can't even hear, but certainly was out of context, because there's no way that he just went on there and was like dropping N-bombs. There's just no way. I just don't believe it at all. So is that your assertion?
It wasn't.
He just
It wasn't. One after the other. It was just once, I think.
Yeah, but what? But why? Why did he say it? Do you remember?
He was actually saying that kind of messaging isn't helpful. And yet, he's still saying it in front of Richard Spencer.
He was basically doing what you would ask of him, which is disavow the use of it. But because he used the word, you can't see the point he was making there?
What I'm asking you is, what do you think that's going to do to his vote total?
I don't give a fuck. If people
well, then you just failed as a campaign manager.
If people are that's the whole problem. The reason the LP doesn't succeed is because you're so concerned about getting votes. The way you will actually
getting votes is how you win, though.
The way
You're
the
not
way you will
going
act,
into the campaign to like.
guys are
You
wrong.
literally
You
said
guys
at
are
the
wrong.
beginning that you had to become electable.
If again you're missing the context. I said that there's two different ways. If you want to become a viable third party, you have to get to a vote total that makes you electable. In order to get to that position, I believe you need to disregard vote seeking and speak with courage and do things that are completely unexpected and message in a way that is really profound and powerful and wakes people up. We're so far away from electability. I think it's completely putting the cart before the horse to say, oh, no, we have to focus on getting 4% or 5% of the vote. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is a fucking ideological revolution in this country, and that's my priority. So I think Dave will do an amazing job at it, and that would be.
So how does throwing slurs around help an ideological revolution?
Dude, it's incredible that you're gonna. You literally just said that Dave was using it to say
Not just that instance. Not just that instance.
Are you talking about the
your entire
thing?
side?
Oh.
No, not just Dave. Your entire side loves to throw slurs around. You were saying it earlier that you want to just treat it as a joke, and that somehow that teaches people courage.
But Dave, that wasn't a joke. What you just said, Dave said. So, I mean, you got to keep it linear, progressive thought here, so I can actually follow your train. So you're saying that now Tower Gang's use of the N-word is an example of this being a pattern because Dave said we shouldn't be using it?
If he goes on that show, of course that's going to be brought up if he starts challenging the duopoly, right?
If they bring up a quote of him telling Richard Spencer it is not helpful to use the N-word, I think that will be beneficial to his campaign, if anything.
No, that's not the exact quote. But what I'm saying is all of this crap floating around the liberty movement, you don't think that's going to be brought up?
The crap being Tower Gang's use of the N-word sometimes? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, you're focusing on just that podcast. I'm talking about the culture of the larger liberty movement.
Yeah, I don't find it to be a racist culture. If it were, I wouldn't be involved in it. So your assertion about it is...
So it's all jokes. That's all it is. There's nothing tangible.
I think there's way more sincere racism, both in Joe Biden's heart as well as many GOP voters. I mean, to believe that libertarianism, the one ideology that actually treats people with respect, regardless of their color, creed, nationality, anything like that. Like, I just
treating people with respect to throw a meme at them, implying they should be hanged.
Respect
implying they should be past tense
to their rights.
How are they going to exercise any right if their right to life is nullified?
If they've killed themselves, that's tragic, but that is not a libertarian position to prevent them from committing suicide. You can reach out and help them, of course, but this is just, it's not, you're really detached from reality on this, Archie. I swear to God you are. To think that these people that are making memes that they know will enrage you, and you think that means that they actually hate trans people. I just don't agree with it.
I think a lot of them do.
Well, you can think that. When I talk with them, it doesn't seem to me like they actually
try
do.
an experiment. Try an experiment. I dare you. Make a sock Twitter account that you think represents what wokeness is.
And they're going to hate it, of course.
And then go ahead and see how it's flooded with Groyper memes and all kinds of horrible accounts.
Okay, well, I don't think that would be coming from the libertarians that I run with. Now, there is obviously an anti-trans sentiment that exists within the Groypers, but the Groypers are not. There is not much overlap between that and the libertarians.
And they are basically adjacent because of Dave being buddy with Nick Fuentes.
No, that's your perception. That's not at all the reality. That they're basically adjacent. Come on, man. You just said he's a white nationalist. You think that Dave's that?
No, I don't think Dave is a white nationalist. I think that Dave averts his eyes from Nick Fuente's toxic attributes because he wants to message to that particular group.
He's been very clear as to why he's doing it, that he wants to give them a pathway from what I believe he sees as a very dangerous path. I think that there's merit in that. There's beauty in that effort. The fact that you want to just cancel these people and assume that they have no redeeming qualities is nonsense.
Now you're putting words in my mouth. I would love to see them have
which is it?
An arc of redemption. But
okay, then what's wrong with Dave reaching out to them?
Because he's not trying that. When at the beginning of the debate, when at the beginning of the debate, he laughs about, the white supremacist chat. But I mean that in the best sense of white supremacy. That's a paraphrase. I'm not quoting exactly. I know he gets all.
Are. What is the point here? I don't even understand the context of the paraphrase. What did that mean? I don't even know.
At the beginning of the debate with Nick Fuentes.
Yes, what did he say?
He completely minimized the fact that everybody in the chat was pretty much spewing white supremacist bullshit.
Okay.
So why is he minimizing that if his real goal is to convert people away from it?
Do you think that he's going to convert groypers by opening a debate with Nick Fuentes by going, my feelings are hurt because of the fucking chat?
No, but he doesn't have to coddle them either.
Is that the type of leadership that would compel these young,
I'm not saying he has to do
men
that.
to get away from the white nationalist path, or would it be better for him
that's
to laugh
not what
it
I'm
off?
saying. He's not laughing it off like, kids are going to be kids. He was laughing it off very much like he sympathized with their whole worldview.
That's your perception of it. I don't think.
Well, then he shouldn't
sympathizes with Nazis and white nationalists. I think that is completely your concocted view of Dave.
So,
I don't think it has any attachment.
He tells Richard Spencer. He tells Chris Cantwell. He tells
Spencer not to use the N-word.
Nick Fuentes. Variations on, I don't see why people think you're so evil.
They don't have the power of the state. They have bad ideas.
Yeah, but
I think
they had
that's
the power
probably
of the
what.
state.
Okay, if they had the power of the state.
If they had the power of the state, of course.
Would Joe Biden be evil without the power of the state?
Probably
his
not.
Same exact views. Okay, so evil is not a set of philosophical ideals.
Sure. Okay, then yes, perhaps he would be evil because he's a bad person, and he probably would be seeking power through private means to manipulate and injure others. Sure, fair. I'll give you that one.
I mean, I'll grant you that these groypers don't have real world power like any member of Congress does. Any member of Congress right now can do all manner of evil without hardly anybody noticing.
Yes, agreed. This is why I think focusing on the groyper movement in a way that puts them up on a pedestal of being this super dangerous trend line is a mistake. It actually gives them further legitimacy than they deserve. It's like they don't have political power, and the fact that he was even there debating Dave Smith on whether or not they could ever wield the power of the state to see their worldview, I think is beautiful, because it allowed the groypers, who I view as being completely detached from reality, when they think that they have any chance in hell of ever getting, one, another Donald Trump-like figure in there, or two, that if he were to get in there, they would actually implement the things that they believe in. I mean, it's important that those people feel disaffected, because they are disaffected. They have no chance of actually wielding the state in that way. So I think encouraging them towards an anarchist worldview is the prudent thing to do. And you don't do that by entering into a debate with their god in Fuentes and then saying, your chat is offensive to me. As a Jewish man, I think that you should stop. Like, they would immediately discount everything he had to say for the rest of the
What about
debate.
instead of laughing it off like he did, just not even mentioning it?
I don't care.
Go look at the clip.
I just don't care. I don't care. As long as he's doing it out of conscious thought of being tactical, it makes perfect sense to me.
I don't think there was conscious thought of being tactical. I don't think he was being. Who was that?
Dave's a very tactical debater, so I think you're totally wrong there.
Is it Daryl Davis that I'm trying to think of?
Yeah,
John? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Davis.
Concussion
Dave is no
Foundation.
Daryl Davis.
I don't know who Daryl Davis is. Is that the Concussion Foundation guy?
No, it's the guy who he's a black guy. He like meets with KKK members and gets them to like hang up their.
Oh
robes
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
No, that's great. But that's also not Dave's mission. Is not to make that his entire life's work. Is to not get KKK people to quit the Klan. Like that's awesome that that Daryl's had such great success in doing so. But I mean, if that's your cause, Archie, more power to you, man. Like make that your cause. But you can't demand that everyone that's a libertarian make that their focal point too. I mean, all I've ever said is that we should be focusing on what we're passionate about, as long as it's within the libertarian framework or ideology or umbrella. Do what you're best at. Do what you're passionate about, and try and claw back a little bit of liberty in whatever way you can. I just don't think that your war against Dave is paying the dividends in any way. Is he frozen?
I don't know.
No.
I was waiting for him to say something.
It's just extremely still.
Okay.
I've never seen a guy be able to sit that still for about 5
I
seconds.
honestly thought he was frozen.
So did
I
I.
wasn't.
I'll grant you that one.
Archie, I mean, do you get my point at all, or does it just sound as if I'm just trying to be mean to you?
No, I don't think you're trying at all to be mean.
Okay, great.
I think we have extremely divergent views on basic facts, but I don't think that. Let's just put it this way: as long as Fuentes isn't there, I would share a beer with you on your lawn.
Hey, there we go. Honestly,
Am I invited?
we would-
Asking.
Hilditch, yes, you're invited.
As long as Hilditch is not invited.
No,
Oh,
bullshit to this. If
Archie.
you fucking say he can come and I can't come, then I'm
I
gonna
just
lose my
I just
fucking
said you
shit.
can come, but Archie now doesn't want you there, man. So this is you guys are
What
gonna
is
have
this?
to do
This is like
up.
the biggest knife in the back I've ever had.
that is
Archie, you're on my team.
quite the betrayal. I did not expect that one.
He's not betraying me. He loves me. Give
I'm
you kisses too, mate.
Yeah. Anyways, I just want to say, I think that there's way more that we have in common. I think that the biggest issue that I have with your group is that I feel as if you fail a simple triage test of identifying what is and isn't, one, something we can do something about, and two, something that is a top priority. And for me, it's like ending the wars, diminishing the state power so that we don't get fucking locked in our houses, ending lockdowns, ending vaccine mandates. All of these things are like, this is something that we all agree upon, I think. So why not just focus on that? Why are we wasting our time arguing
How do
over
we end the wars?
memes on the internet? What's that?
How do we end the wars?
Defending trans rights. I mean, obviously.
No, come on.
How do we end the wars?
That's a cop-out.
No, it was a joke.
No, I get it. But how do you end the wars?
Well, there's a tried and true methodology of tax evasion. There's also obviously, if we could get any sort of momentum towards protesting the state, that would be great. I think that we don't
BLM
have
protests.
What's that?
I said like at the BLM protests when they were protesting against cops.
That wasn't ending wars, but yeah,
Well,
I
they said
agree
against
with
the
you.
state.
Yeah. Well, and as I've said, I thought that there was an opportunity that was missed there. I mean, it was the first time people were actually engaged in the streets, and anytime you see a dormant population rise up, if you're not trying to use it to your advantage, I don't think that you're thinking tactically. I think the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of libertarians to say, "I want nothing to do with this," was dumb. Personally,
Okay,
you
we
know,
can agree on
but
that.
yeah, but as to the bigger point, I mean, yeah, end the wars by getting our people in a decision-making position. Sure, it's possible, but it's these are all. I'm pretty black-pilled, to be honest. Like I don't think that we have a tremendous hope in this moment of getting a real viable movement to like end the war in Yemen and things like that. Most people don't even know it's happening. So my focus is on reaching people where they're at right now, and where they're at right now is hating vaccine mandates, lockdowns, things like that. And I think that that's what we can definitely, I think we can agree on and focus on as being something that can activate people to get them to actually protest and get some state power to be diminished. Do you guys
How do
think
we
that
end
there's,
vaccine mandates?
I would do sit-ins, even though a lot of libertarians think that that's unprincipled. I would like to organize sit-ins.
Okay,
In New York.
sit-ins are going to influence who?
I mean, it could influence people if it's seen on the news. It would influence people that think that they are a minority in this country and that they believe in bodily autonomy, and they would now realize that, like, okay, there are people that are pushing back against this. I now feel compelled to do the same. It's the entire argument of the civil rights movement.
But if there's no end game of influence, if there's no chain to get back to, then what's the point? Isn't the ultimate point to influence the influencers? To change the minds of the decision makers?
Yeah, but I mean, you do that with political pressure. The way you apply that political pressure is multifactorial. Like you can do it from a populist revolt rising. You can do it through threats. You can do it through media and converting people through podcasts or the news or whatever.
So ending war or ending vaccine mandates, it all boils down to getting politicians to change their views or their decisions.
Yeah, decisions, sure. I don't know if it'll change their views, but yeah.
Fair point. So that's my point, is that if you want to work outside the LP, go for it. But if you're going to be in the LP, you have to at least agree with the measure of getting candidates into office. Because if you don't agree with that, then why are you in a political party? That's my whole point. And if you're in a political party and you want candidates to get into office, you shouldn't be alienating people with high school level bullshit, which is what all of that is.
I'm totally fine with trying to get, lower level, state level political libertarian members. Like, yeah, I'm all for it. I just think that it's kind of a waste of energy or diluted to believe that we're going to take federal power through the LP. And when it comes to what I like about the LP on a federal level or a national impact, is its messaging more than its potential for actually wielding political power.
I'm assuming you've at least heard of Larry Sharp.
I've had him on my show, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. I wish I could find where he said this. I'm not exactly sure when I read this, or maybe I heard him say it, but anyhow, his basic plan, and I love this plan, is to get into as many state houses as possible. Start lower, build a base.
Yeah.
And then in 8 years, maybe 12 years, maybe, then we'll have a realistic shot at the presidency.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that still takes electoral politics, and that still takes being aware of not turning people away from your movement needlessly, which I think is what this high school level BS absolutely does. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for stupid humor. There's a time and a place for, dark humor. Being on inculcating that into your culture as a liberty movement is not the time or the place. Okay, the time and the place is your lawn.
Yeah, we'll have to disagree on that. I think that having the liberty to tell inappropriate jokes is really appealing to a lot of people, and I think it's more probable that it'll bring more people into this movement than you think will scare off. But that's my personal outlook. As for your 8 to 10 year plan that Larry Sharp detailed, I'm all for it. I think that that's great. It's extremely hopeful and optimistic. I personally am much more of a pessimist. I don't think that we're going to have. I don't even know what the state of the union will be in 8 to 10 years. I think that there's a real chance that we have secession, like, in that time frame. So I wish Larry all the best, and I think that getting whatever political power we can to try and give ourselves some protection as things kind of come collapsing down is great. But I just don't think that it's reasonable to think that we're not going to have major turmoil between now and a potential libertarian president. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. There's going to be some stuff going down probably.
It's going to be rough.
2024 is going to be interesting.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, 2024. I'm just trying to survive until then, man. We got 2 years of the war on terror at home. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, this is why, and just for the record, this is why I speak out about January 6th the way I do, is because I'm very concerned about it. Are you guys not concerned with talking about it as if it was a terrorist attack, and that this gives people it gives the government kind of the impetus to treat them as if they're actual terrorists?
I mean, I think some people have that motivation, but I do think there's the issue with government overreach and overreacting to a problem for sure. I mean, I see that in the criminal justice system all the time.
Whether or not that was their motivation, do you think what they did was terrorism, and that any of the things that have happened to them since then are justified?
Well, no, I don't. I'm a big critic of the criminal justice system myself. That's kind of a thing for me. I mean, I don't want people held without trial for no reason, kind of thing, for long periods of time. I do think there was some terrorism motivation from some of them in terms of wanting to install their favorite authoritarian over the other authoritarian. But I don't think there was anything... It wasn't 9/11 or something, if that's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I would hope we could agree that it wasn't 9/11.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It was also not 1812. The last people that were successful in sacking the capital, the British. Way!
And this is why you can't go on his lawn.
Yeah, your British nationalism is very off-putting.
It's not even nationalism, it's just funny. Hey, I thought we were all about jokes, mate.
No, it was a joke, and I actually appreciated that one. See?
He's actually laughing.
Yeah, we can laugh about stuff, even when I disagree, because I don't like 1812. But hey, it's all good. Anyways, you guys got anything else for me? I know. What's that?
Were you there in 1812? How old are you?
I'm pretty old.
You're pretty old. You were there in
yeah.
1812. Were you?
Yeah.
Did you have a musket?
Vampire.
You fire a couple of volleys at a redcoat.
All right, now
I probably would have.
I think probably time to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well, for anyways, 2 hours.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I hope that you can understand a little bit more of our worldview, and I hope that it can lower the temperature in the room. I don't think that there's any reason for us to be as antagonistic as we are towards each other, and whether or not you'll ever see my perspective on these things, I don't know. But I think I attempted at least to hear you out and show you where I do actually agree with you guys. So anyways, that's all. A peace offering, if you will.
All right. So
As long as I can get to your lawn, we've got peace. If not, it's war.
Yep.
All right. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Take care.
Buy shirt, get money. No, other way. We get money. You send money, we get shirt.